Have you ever been so confused while reading post-structuralism that you can't wrap your head around its complex terms, concepts, terminologies, and whatnot? But what if I told you that it doesn't have to be so complex and confusing? Don't believe me? Watch this video to get your answer. Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Riya Gandhi and I upload videos related to UGC NET English Literature where I share certain essential tips and strategies and cover some of the most essential topics related to UGC NET English Literature which will help you crack the exam. In today's video, we are going to deal with the most complex literary theory, and that is post-structuralism. I'm going to discuss some of its most complex terms, break it down for you, and also discuss some of its essential critiques which will help you in your UGC NET English exam preparation. Stay tuned till the end of this video and don't forget to hit the bell icon to get more notifications regarding the videos that I will be uploading in the future. Friends, when we are talking about the word post-structuralism, it is, as the name suggests, a literary critical theory that emerged after or against structuralism. When it all began in the 1960s, when the world had observed two of its horrific wars of its time, the First World War and the Second World War, because of which what they experienced was called disillusionment. And because of disillusionment, they did not believe in one structural reality that structuralism proposed. In fact, they wanted to focus more upon the subjective realities of the people. And so the literary critics and philosophers rebelled against structuralism, thinking that it was more of a restrictive and a formulaic way of thinking. Friends, if you remember, in the previous video, we discussed how structuralism viewed societies, literatures, cultures, literary texts in terms of its structures. And the meaning was derived based upon the relationship of its elements like plot structures, narrative structures, themes, characters, motives, and so on and so forth. When we are talking about structuralism, it derived its meaning from binary opposites. It believed that the relationship between the word and its meaning is arbitrary, and in order to define one particular word, you need to take help of other words. And so post-structuralism banged on this idea. They took it to its extreme and they said that if the relationship between the signifier and the signified is arbitrary and you need to take help of other words to define one word, since there is no the meaning or essential meaning, there is no fixed language. That means there is no one structural reality. There is no one truth. There are multiple truths. There are multiple realities, and so there cannot be one single interpretation of a text. Sounds confusing? Let's break this down. Let's understand this with the help of this picture. How do you define this picture? Is it a picture of a young man and a young woman having the time of their lives? Or is it a picture of an old man and old woman looking at each other? Probably for you, it is the old couple looking at each other, but for me, it is a young couple having the time of their lives. Guess what? We both are right. Why? Because these two pictures are merged into this one painting, and the meaning is dependent upon the perspective with which we are approaching this painting. And that is exactly what post-structuralism is. Post-structuralism does not depend upon one single truth or one single meaning. It depends upon your truth and my truth and the truths of all the other people who are looking at this particular painting. And because of which meaning in post-structuralism is fluid, it is constant, it keeps on changing, language becomes unstable. The key features of post-structuralism that we just discussed right now and that set it apart from structuralism include, first, that in post-structuralism there is no one single truth or interpretation in a text. Post-structuralism always believes that there is room for multiplicity of truths and interpretations, and all of them lie on the same continuum. Unlike structuralism, which believes that there is only one objective truth and reality to to a particular text, which you can derive through interpreting the relationship amongst the elements in a particular text. These elements include the plot structures, the narrative styles, the themes, characters, so on and so forth. The second key feature of post-structuralism that we discussed right now is that in post-structuralism, the linguistic sign is considered to be a free-floating signifier. Now, what is this free-floating signifier? Remember that in structuralism, we discussed how Saussure provided the concept of a sign. A sign constitutes a signifier and a signified, and he also mentioned that the relationship between the signifier and the signified is arbitrary. In order to describe the signifier, you need to take the help of other signifiers because you cannot reach at the signified. You cannot reach at the meaning, and because of which there is the lack of the signified. And that's why in post-structuralism, the critiques have mentioned that the linguistic sign is a free-floating signifier. The third key feature of post-structuralism is that the meaning is always changing. The meaning will not be the same. It always keeps on changing based upon our interpretations, based upon the background that we come from, our perspectives, the context in which the text is, but not based upon what the author thinks to be. Based upon these key features, we realize that language is inherently unstable, which makes us realize that if language is inherently unstable and we use language to describe what is happening around us, we use language to describe our realities, does this mean that our realities are also unstable? Which leads us to conclude that according to post-structuralism, we live in a decentered universe. Friends, I hope you got a basic idea of what post-structuralism is. Now it's time to dive deep into understanding some of its most important critiques and theorists who effectively shaped this theory and are very important to understand, especially from UGC NET point of view. One of the most important concepts related to post-structuralism that effectively shaped the theory was the deconstructive turn that was brought about by the French philosopher Jacques Derrida. Derrida expanded upon the concept of the signifier and the signified. He said that since the relationship between the signifier and the signified is arbitrary, you are constantly referring to other words to define one particular word. In that process, you're constantly postponing the meaning. Let's understand this concept with an example. I'll give you a word and you try to define it, okay? So the word is dog. Define the word dog for me. You'll probably say that it's an animal. Okay, what is an animal? It's a living being. What is a living being? Something that has life. So you see, you're constantly referring to other words to define the word dog, but you are not arriving at the perfect meaning. According to Jacques Derrida, there is no the meaning. So there is absence of the meaning. So you're trying to fill that lack, you're trying to fill that gap by referring to other words. You're referring to other signifiers to fill the gap of the meaning. So what you are essentially doing is, according to Jacques Derrida, is a perpetual deference. Let's break this word down. Perpetual means forever. Deference means postponing. You are forever postponing the meaning by referring to other signifiers, other words, which we just did in this process. So how we started with the word dog, then animal, then living being, then life, then you will, so on and so forth. The entire process will go on just like that. So this is what he called as perpetual deference. You're constantly postponing the meaning. And this entire process is defined by Jacques Derrida as différance, or more appropriately in French as différence. It is a combination of two words, that is difference plus deference. Difference, why? Because in this larger system of language, the words are still different to each other. Dog is a different word from animal. Animal is a different word from living being. Living being is a different word from life. So the difference is still there, but there is that absence of the meaning, and to fill that, you're constantly postponing it, you're constantly deferring to other words, and that's why he has combined these two words, that is difference and deference, to create that French word that is différance. Derrida introduced his ideas of différance in his most seminal work, that is of grammatology, which was published in 1967. Friends, this is the most important work that you should go through, or at least have a basic understanding from UGC NET point of view, because questions have been repeatedly asked related to Jacques Derrida and of grammatology in UGC NET English exam over the course of these years. Another French thinker who effectively shaped the post-structuralist theory is Michel Foucault. Foucault expanded upon the notions of power and knowledge. In fact, he explained that knowledge is used as a medium by people in power to reinforce the existing power relations. But it does prompt us to ask the questions like, what is this knowledge? Where is this knowledge coming from? Who is creating this knowledge? For example, if it is told to us that men should like blue color and women should like pink color, where is this knowledge coming from? According to Foucault, knowledge is created, distributed, shared, and used by people in power to reinforce the existing power relations. So to sustain and maintain their power and their authority, they create, distribute, share, and use a particular knowledge. How do they do that? They do that by setting a certain sort of discourse. Now, what is this discourse? A discourse, again, is a system of thought or knowledge which is well connected. It is including a lot of ideas and interlacing a lot of ideologies and thoughts together to create a discourse. Let's simplify this. For example, the common discourse or a common narrative right now in society is that women are naturally the better caregivers. Now, who decided that particular narrative? Who said that? Essentially speaking, men in power. Why? Because first of all, it perpetuates the gender roles. How? If it is said that women are naturally the better caregivers, obviously as women, we will be traditionally put inside the households. We would be confined within the four walls of the domestic households, and we would try to fit the role of being the natural and better caregivers than men. This would lead to complete elimination from the workforce. Secondly, it would also justify paying less or paying zero amount to women working as homemakers or housewives. At the same time, it would also justify the gender pay gap between men and women at the workforces. So you see that when essentially speaking, women are considered to be the natural better caregivers, and that is the discourse that has been set by men. It is legitimizing unequal power relations. Similarly, all the other discourses legitimize unequal power relations. Another most important French critique of post-structuralism, without which any discussion related to post-structuralism is incomplete, is Roland Barthes and his most seminal essay, The Death of the Author, which was published in 1968. This is the most important work, especially from UGC NET English point of view, because questions related to Roland Barthes and The Death of the Author have been repeatedly asked over the course of the years. So if you are preparing for your UGC NET English exam, you should not miss out on this one. In this particular work, first of all, Barthes has differentiated between a work and a text. According to Barthes, a work is a physical object that occupies a shelf space, and a text is something more dynamic, something live, as in the meaning is created and experienced as and when the reader decodes it. What he means by this essentially is that when you read a particular book, it will be termed as a work if you interpret it based upon what the author intended to write. As in, if you interpret it based upon the author's historical background, his context, their personal lives, what they thought while they were writing it, based upon all of these notions, if you interpret a book, it will be a work. But If you interpret it based upon your ideas, your perceptions, your interpretations, your background, it will be turned as a text. Why? Because from that perspective, my interpretation of a book will be different from your interpretation. Your interpretation will be different from another person's interpretation of the same book. In a similar manner, the text will remain live throughout because it will have several interpretations. It will have multiple meanings, which takes us back to the initial idea that we discussed in the beginning of the video, that in post-structuralism, meaning is always fluid. There is no one single meaning. According to Barthes, there is the author who is considered to be the authoritative figure, who is more controlling if you bring him in that particular interpretation. He will stop the transformation of a work into text. For example, if you interpret Shakespeare's Hamlet as a result of Shakespeare's son's Hamlet's death, you are going to interpret the father-son dynamic in the play based upon that particular relationship, and you're only going to go so far. But if you even forget who is writing that play or who wrote that play and interpret it based upon your perspectives, your ideas, it is going to be different. If you interpreted the particular father-son dynamic in Shakespeare's Hamlet as the result of an Oedipal complex of Hamlet's relationship towards Gertrude, then it is a text. Because you are providing your own perspectives, you are providing your own ideas to it, and so the text becomes live. You may or may not agree with that particular interpretation and provide your own, and that's how the text remains live throughout. These ideas provided by Barthes, especially regarding the differentiation between the work and the text, sort of emphasized the role of the reader. It provided more importance to the role of the reader and less importance to the role of the author, and because of which later down in the generations you will see the emergence of reader response theory. By providing more importance to the reader, he was introducing more subjectivity into reading and interpretation. And that's why he made the famous statement that the birth of the reader must be at the cost of the death of the author. Apart from these concepts, there are various other important concepts related to these French thinkers and philosophers, especially Jacques Derrida's concepts of logocentrism, phonocentrism, supplement, Roland Barthes' concepts of readerly and writerly text, and Michel Foucault's concepts of power and author. I have covered all of these important concepts in a very simplified manner in my live classes for UGC NET English exam preparation. In these classes, I have explained every topic and concept related to the history of British English literature and literary criticism in a very comprehensive manner. At the same time, in these one-on-one classes, you can expect personalized guidance, a period-by-period breakdown, covering some of the most important writers and topics, understanding question trends, paper patterns, and more. If you want to know more about the courses I offer, the sessions I take, and the notes I offer, feel free to check out my TopMate page. It's topmate.io/Riya Gandhi. That's it for today's video, folks. I hope you found the video informative and helpful. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and also please hit the bell icon so you get the notification whenever I upload any video in the future. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I'll see you in the next one.